Well, just as we were about to finish production of this video series, a new version of Sonar X1 became available, and that's the D release. Along with the D release, we have a lot of enhancements to the equalizer module for the Pro channel. So in this video, I'm going to explain the changes in the D release version of the Pro channel equalizer. Now let's just take a look at what we've got. At the top, you can see there's a new mode called Hybrid. This new Hybrid mode has asymmetrical boosts and cuts. Let me just show you an example of that. I'll engage the high-mid channel, and we'll put in a pretty dramatic boost. I've got the scale set to automatic. You can change that up here. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but if you right-click in the small view on the channel, you can choose the plot resolution. I have it set to auto, or you can have fixed settings of 6 dB, 12 dB, or 18 dB. I'm going to change this to 18 dB so you can see the overview of this. So let me go back here. Here's all the way off. Now as we turn this up, you'll see we've got a nice narrow filter, and if we adjust this broadly, you can see that filter actually narrows out as it goes up a little bit. Now if we dip down, you'll see it's very, very pointed. So the Q is reduced when you're cutting. So this allows you to have surgical precision if you're trying to take out an annoying frequency or some sort of ringing while you're doing cuts, but then use broader boosts, and this is without twiddling around with the Q control quite as much. The other thing, as you move up, it broadens out the Q, and this is very much like the G-type channel. If we look at the G channel, it has a very similar curve as you do boosts in the positive direction. But if you look at the E channel, it stays about the same, so it's a little bit narrower as you do boost at the same setting. So during boost, this works a lot like an E channel, but during cuts, we've got really a new mode that allows more surgical precision. So the advantage of this is that for most common operations, this speeds things up quite a bit. Now on this new mode, let's take a look at how a low shelf works. This is always something I'm really interested in. So let's turn on a low shelf, do a boost, and increase the Q. You can see a little overshoot right at the corner frequency, and then you can see a little dip following it. Now, the G channel does something similar as we've shown before, but it's a little more pronounced on this hybrid channel. This shape is usually quite flattering on the low end of a signal if you're doing a bass booster cut. Let's just take a listen to this on the drum bus. That we also have bass in here. So that's the new hybrid mode for the equalizer. If we just take a quick look back at the pure mode, it has a very different style of response. You can see right here, we're at about 6 dB, and somewhere between 6 and 12, it really changes shape and really starts to reduce the Q of the top part, and it does the same thing on the low end. This is a very interesting mode. This can be used on a channel, or it can be used on the master bus or even for mastering. It's a very, very nice, but it's not a real apparent kind of an EQ. So right now, my favorite mode is this new hybrid mode. I think it's really the most useful for mixing. If you'd like to mix using the classic style EQs because you're familiar with those, then these are completely valid. You could use almost any of these for any type of mixing. But I really like this new hybrid mode, and I think that you're going to enjoy using that. Now let's take a look at the EQ graph here. One of the really nice things about this new version is the scale is shown. This is the gain scale, and then this is the frequency scale. If you hover your cursor in any of the bands, you'll see these little blue lines kind of point to the area that it's set. You can actually drag around in here to make adjustments to that as well. It's not necessarily a new behavior, but it's worth reviewing. If you're dragging here, you can drag up and down in order to set the gain, back and forth or left and right to set the frequency. And then if you want to set the Q, just hold down Alt. And then as you drag up and down with Alt, you can set the Q. If you want to have a higher resolution adjustment, you can add Shift to that. And now as you drag up and down, you have a little bit finer control over all of those. So this is left and right. It moves very quickly, but if I add Shift, then it slows it down and gives me finer control of that. Same thing for the Q. I can also click within these bands in order to turn them on or off. And you'll see that the same thing works in the small view up here. You can quickly grab this right in the channel strip and do these operations. A single click will turn it on or off. Now the biggest change that you'll notice is that everything is nicely color-coded now. We've got this kind of red color for the bass, yellow for low mids, then we've got high mids on green, and then we've got blue here on the top end. In addition to new graphics, we have direct access to the values, which I think is a really welcome feature. So on the low end for all these bands, we have frequency, Q, and level. So if we wanted to type in a specific frequency, we can now double click on this value. Say I want to change that to 300, I can just type it directly in. If I want to make the 6 dB, I can double click and type it directly in. The graphics are a little different, but the high pass, low pass, and gloss control still work the same as they did in the previous EQ. If I engage the low pass, you'll see the effect on the resulting overall frequency response plot in the white line. Same thing on the top end. If we turn off these other bands, then you can see the effect of that is pretty much as you'd expect. The gloss EQ is engaged when you've got a bold lettering on the gloss button. Just like this. You don't see any effect on the line here, but it adds some air to the overall EQ sound. Because it's backward compatible, the D version equalizer won't really change the sound of any existing mixes, but it will if you switch to the hybrid mode. And I think as you continue working with it, you're going to find the hybrid mode is a very useful addition to the Pro Channel equalizer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.